Thanks. So anyway, we're here and we're talking about implementing empathy circles in schools. So I've gone over what the California Department of Education says, and then also in literary analysis, some of you are very familiar with NVC, thinking about the feelings, needs. In the empathy circle, we talk about feelings. The words, the feelings, and then the values underneath. And in NVC, I think they talk about needs and values and responding to those rather than any triggers that might occur. I'd like to, have an empathy circle. We could talk, the topic will be, what's your situation? How are you trying to implement it? And then what I've done is, considering what I know about the school environment, I've kind of broken down the empathy circle. In other words, it's very hard to say to someone, all right, let's, for 2 hours, you have nothing else to do in your busy life. For 2 hours, let's do this. Now, I think, again, knowing what I know now, that's totally worthwhile, but it's not, most people would not say, oh yeah, sure, I have 2 hours to do that. And they don't understand it. When people have the experience and when they feel heard, then I believe there's a real interchange, something that I don't think that we fully understand yet. And I think that when children feel fully heard, for instance, my experience, I dealt with a very, very disturbed population, emotionally disturbed, suicidal adolescents, students who were in danger of being removed from their homes or coming back from the hospital, who had very involved things and could be prone to violence. And when a child acted out physically, what we did is that we grouped up, and even though, what you see is like a book being thrown or a chair being thrown or somebody just, wailing on somebody out of the blue, there's a communicative intent. And that was a profound learning experience for myself, that everything we do is really, even if it's dysfunctional and angry, is an attempt at trying to communicate with our fellow human beings. So that's a core, I think, a core premise that I'm working from. And so, and when we were able to find out, well, the child didn't get breakfast, or the child saw his or her mother being beaten by their father the night before, and we could then address that issue, the violence went way down. And that was a profound learning for me. And that's what brought me to the empathy circle, because essentially during my career, funds were being cut. Services, just teach them the basics, get them out of there. There's a whole bunch of things that were going on. And so I know that there are millions of kids who need to be heard. And so I felt that my job is not done. And that if we can start to bring empathy circles and give kids the experience of being heard, that would make a profound difference in the way we interact with each other. So that's the basic core of what I'm talking about. Let's see, we have 8 participants. All right, are there any questions, first of all? Oh, let's do a check-in. I'll just go around and let's see how you are. I see a lot of familiar faces and some new ones. I welcome you all. And I just want to express my appreciation that you're all here, that this means enough for you to come here. It really deeply touches me, and I appreciate it. So Graham, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. And I bring a lot of curiosity to this little meeting, so I'm looking forward to what comes out of it.
Okay.
And Yeah, I'm generally speaking in a really good space. And I've just come off my bike ride. And here it's a little bit wet and whatever. And so I'm kind of feeling energized and ready to go.
Great, great. Welcome. Anne?
So I'm Anne. I'm in England, in the southwest of England. I'm here. I'm a kind of passionate supporter of Empathy Circus and building a culture of empathy in the world. I'm retired. I'm a retired teacher too, and I see, as Edwin's saying, the importance of bringing empathy to our children as soon as possible, really, as well as everybody else. But so I'm curious, and I'm here to find and maybe kind of work with others to support them. I'm not currently working in schools, but was talking about empathy circles to others who were teachers the other day, and they showed interest. So maybe there's a way that I can start doing it with support or being part of a group thinking about it. I see as being potentially really useful Great. And powerful. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. And again, I've created a module, and I'd be happy to be used as a resource for any one of you. So as you start to go forward. Welcome. Diane, want to check in?
Sure, thanks. Well, I've just been a fan of Bill and Edwin's for quite some time, and empathy has always been an important part of my life. I'm not a teacher, however, I'm trying to bring some different kinds of programming to children in small ways that I can. I'm still learning and practicing and building what that looks like. It's quite hard to do it on Zoom. You got little wigglers all over the place. But I just think it's so important because it's like the key to healing humanity is developing empathy, communication, and thought process for others. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Great, thanks, Diane. Dow.
Hi, from Austin, I'm Dow. I do need to have another meeting to go to at 12:30. If that's not okay, Bill, let me know. I still would like to join every Thursday if possible.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. Do what you can.
In 7th grade, my parents are fighting a lot, and I saw myself crying every day during lunch, sitting by myself, not knowing how to make friends, and I wish I had an empathy circle. So I'm very curious about what this might look like.
Great, great. Hopefully we can flesh that out. Sita?
Hi, I'm Sita. I'm coming from Portland, Oregon in the USA. And yeah, I have been very inspired by mindfulness in schools, the groups who've done that. And I would love to see more empathy in schools. Yeah, I feel like just the examples that you were giving, Bill, about how people just really change when they're heard, when they come from experience of not being heard. And I'm here curious, interested, seeing how I can support. I do work at a school. I work at a graduate school. And just throwing that out there. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here. So thank you.
Great. Lovely to have you. Aaron.
One more thing. I just
Sure.
remembered.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I have to leave at 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
right.
Do what we can. Okay. Nothing's going to stop this.
and I have to leave at about a half hour early. So.
Okay. Well, it's hard. It would be nice because we are going to do an empathy circle if we can start. So it's hard to do an empathy circle with all of that. So in the future, if we can just, be mindful of that, or we can actually shorten it too. I'm just flexible. Yeah, Graham?
Another idea is to put those early leavers into one empathy group.
Right. That's a good idea. Thanks, Graham. Yeah.
When are you planning to end, Bill? In how many hours from the start?
Oh, just usual 2 hours.
2 hours. Thank you.
Yeah. Usual, but yeah. Okay. So Aaron.
Hello. I'm very grateful to be here with all of you now. I'm in Nottinghamshire, England, and I'm just coming to the end of my first academic year of working in education. I'm going to start training to be a teacher next year. Yeah, it's all been quite serendipitous with Empathy Circle, the awareness of the Empathy Circles coming into my awareness, because the headmaster at my school was really looking for a way to establish wellness in this school. He'd come from a school before which had a good program, and our school is very traditional, stiff upper lip. Yeah. And he just overheard me on a Zoom meeting talking about what I'm interested in, and we discussed, and I've got the wonderful opportunity to be sort of wellness officer at this school next year. And so I plan, the headmasters agreed to uptake a mindfulness curriculum through Mindfulness in Schools project. It's a charity in, I don't know if it's in the US. Is it in, yeah?
Something like that. Yeah, there's different organizations doing mindfulness in schools.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. So yeah, Mindfulness in Schools project is one in the UK, and the headmasters agreed to take that up and pay for the training of staff. And then coupling in this awareness of feelings and present moment, when I found about Empathy Circles, I was like, ooh, that's how we expand the individual experience into integrating into a communal feel, like a really sort of stoking the fire was the way I saw it. So I'm super excited to be here, learn more, and I had my first experience this morning, and I've been flying since, really, and I'm looking forward to another. So thank you, everyone.
Great, great. And tell me if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Maria?
It's Maria.
Maria. Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm from Hawaii, originally from Japan. I actually had a federally funded project developing curriculum to bring science into Hawaii public school classrooms about 10 years ago. Oh, well, now 15 years ago. This is, oh, I have to tell you ahead of time that I have to leave in an hour or two because I have to teach at 8, but
okay.
But it's a topic that's that I'm passionate about. And so when I saw your post, I felt like I needed to be here. I guess for me right now, I feel like we're underestimating the impact of some of the isolation through COVID for a lot of our kids. And if, again, being able to bring empathy circles into kids' lives right now, that would have such positive impact. And the concept really, I think, is exciting for me. And having a teenage son and seeing his friends and some of the struggles they're going through, I think there's going to be a real need for something like that in the classrooms. And also having experienced the struggles of trying to implement a new concept into a teacher's lives that are already full of projects and just activities. I know how challenging that is, but also I think the benefit of it, we can't really dismiss it.
Great, thanks. Well, I certainly agree with that. And Maria.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Ross. I'm coming to you from San Francisco, the San Francisco Bay Area in California, US. I am actually a brand strategist, but I wrote a book called The Empathy Edge, Harnessing the Value of Compassion as an Engine for Success. And I researched empathy for a little more than 3 years. I also host a podcast called The Empathy Edge. And as the mom of a 7-year-old son, this topic, he actually inspired me to write the book because of my losing heart over seeing the behaviors of leaders in our society. And I have two things to add on this education component. One is I'm very good friends with a woman who started a mindfulness-based school in Seattle that has won awards. And Erin, I'm happy to put you in touch with her. Her name is Renee Meddy. The school is called the Cove School. There's also another school in the San Francisco Bay Area that I actually mentioned in my recent TED Talk called Golistan Education. And it is a school built on not just like a half an hour of empathy education a day. The whole curriculum is based on empathy. And when the kids matriculate into public schools, they get better grades. They're better at handling conflict. They're the kids that the teachers want in their classes because of the training they've had at this school. So I'm happy to make any connections. So I'm very excited to be here.
Great. What a great resource. Thank you for coming. Okay. To give you a big overview, this has been my experience with empathy circles. Empathy circles, the difference in this practice is that it's experiential. And so I use the analogy of like a very dry sponge that you put into water. And if you just put a dry sponge into water and take it out, it doesn't soak up much. But if you put it into water and you just keep it there for a while, things soak in. And this practice needs time to soak in. That's just that. And that is a challenge in a highly structured, highly competitive school day where you have competing mandates, et cetera. So the question is, what motivates both students and staff and us to do empathy circles? And I think I came up with, it's that feeling of being heard. It's the experience. And as Lou, one of the designers and trainers of our facilitation training said, it takes about 3 or 4 rounds before, we kind of get past the superficial part and people feel comfortable and they start to share. Well, that's great, but what if you don't have that time? And so that's the problem that I'm really working on to address. How do you kind of deconstruct empathy circles and then, put it into bite-sized bits, so to speak, and then reconstruct it and then put it back together so that people get the full experience. And there's several, in thinking about it and designing, this module, there's several ways to do that. The first thing that you have when you deal with students and challenges is that you have a range of, of ages. So if I talk to a kindergartner teacher and I say, oh, let's do a 2-hour empathy circle, they're going to look at me and laugh in my face because, it's like Brownie in motion. The kids are all over the place. Okay. So, so what do we do? So how do we give the students, to begin with, that feeling of being heard? And so that starts with just some reflective listening. Now, in addition to these Zoom things that we've kind of gone to during the pandemic, we also do an empathy tent. And so in the empathy tent, we don't say, hey, come on in for a 2-hour, pulling people. And we try different things. I remember Edwin and I set up, right outside in Berkeley, downtown Berkeley, where we are in the San Francisco Bay Area, and right outside of the BART. And, and we were offering free listening, and people, they had jobs to go to. They were trying to make their train. Things like that. So that's what you're competing with. So what we said is, Edwin has a great little business card, says 10 minutes of free listening. Just come over here for free listening. And I've set up also, in addition to, things with Edwin, at a farmer's market where I did the same thing. And we have a few, entrees, we have empathy kisses and things like that. And, and then people come over, and then when they experience it, it's revelatory. So that's where a lot of times, if you're a teacher, and especially you don't have a lot of time, you start with reflective listening. And it could be as short as 1 minute. Hey, Johnny, you seem to have a hard time. What's going on? Really? Oh, can I reflect that to you? And then you do that. and then you do it with, several students. It can be very short. And I think, I think science will back us up as we go along, that will be a natural motivator for those students. So that's the first thing you want to do, is give them the experience of being heard, and that will motivate them to then modify their behavior so that they can then, fit better into the structure. The other advantage of this experiential, and again, I'm not putting down mindfulness or any kind of, intellectual discussion of that. There's Dominic Barter's restorative justice, things like that. There's a lot of things going on. But that is very intellectual, and you need a certain base of information in order to access it. And this is the experiential. So coming from a special ed background, if I gave a kid, the experience of being heard, they trusted me. And then we could then, essentially progress in what we call the therapeutic educational environment. And that, if you spend the time, you don't have to understand it intellectually. And so therefore, this experience of empathy can spread very wide, different ages, different, cognitive abilities, and all of that. So that's what we're really focusing on. I will try to get into, I see it's been about a half an hour, and I don't want to talk too long. But basically I've broken it down. There's several ways to implement this. One is to train staff. And we have a facilitation training that, a lot of people have taken, a lot of people here have taken, and Maria. And so we welcome, that's a free training. And then Edwin also on Fridays at this time does an empathy introductory cafe. And so we can bring that to your school. So if you say, okay, like in Aaron, your situation, you talk to the headmaster, hey, what is this? Or something like that, I'll come, and I'm sure several facilitators will come, and we'll do an introductory cafe. And so they can experience empathy circles. That's what we can do. And that's free of charge, by the way. The next one is we don't have, time or things like that, or you're just on the playground, or when a lot of times that's where problems occur in schools. And then there's a child who's upset. Good time for reflective listening, a minute, just, hey, well, how are you feeling? Do you feel heard? It's amazing how that will, help someone. Certainly in my case, and I think the rest of you are here for that. So you can break it down that way. You can start with reflective listening. Now, the other way, and I can elaborate about these later, but is that actually the listening skills taught in nonviolent NVC, looking at, again, the underlying feelings and needs behind the words, actually parallels very closely with in the state curriculum, and I have all this documentation, by the way, but I won't give it to you right now, with literary analysis. In other words, the other impediment is that, well, and we see this every time as a teacher. If you've ever been a teacher, you're saying, oh, put a question out, and who would like to answer that? And you get silence. And there's a kind of a classic movie called Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where the teacher just goes, saying, all right, anyone, nobody's answering, and you feel so alone. I tell you, as a teacher, I've been there. One of the ways we can overcome the performance anxiety that children and adults have about speaking in a public setting is to basically practice the literary analysis skills that we do in novels. So instead of putting someone on the spot, there's a fictitious character. I date myself, but let's say Catcher in the Rye, Holden Caulfield. And why does he feel this way? And so everybody just kind of practices these listening skills, which are totally, if you're teaching, literary analysis or reading or things like that, that's just part of your regular day. So what you're just doing is highlighting these things. You're teaching students these listening skills and analysis skills, and then you can very easily transfer it to kind of listening to each other. When people feel comfortable, they feel like they understand what's expected, the students do, what's expected of them. And then I do believe it would be possible for like 10 or 15 minutes, first thing in the morning, to have kids listen to each other. You train them up, and then they spend, 10 minutes, 5 minutes apiece, just listening to each other and reflecting. And again, being a special education teacher for about 40 years, I conservatively would think that you would have a reduction in problems by about 30%. Now, I was dealing with that sort of end of the spectrum with students with serious problems, but let's talk about the proactive things that would happen where kids are starting to intervene, requiring less, specialists, counselors, and things like that. And not only that, but then being an asset to school counselors, actually turning that around. So at any rate, somebody said, okay, all right. So somebody left, that's fine. All right, so any questions? I went on for a pretty long time there. I try not to do that. It's a professional hazard, however. No questions, okay. All right, so let's talk, I think we have 8 people, so we can have 2 circles. One will with people who are, able to stay the full time, would be about, I would say about an hour or so, then we'll have a debrief, an hour circle. Yeah, and then, so essentially the topic will be, and I'll kind of put it in the chat, what's your situation and which of these types of models or implementation models might work for you? Or I just outlined some things very quickly. Where are you? What do you want to do? In other words, this is my situation. And then we can craft interventions or, strategies for that. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? And it does, okay. All right, let's see. So Diane, I believe you have to leave early, right? And then Sita has to leave early, okay. And Maria, okay, thank you. Good, keep on correcting me until I get it right if I don't. That's fine. Okay, so there are the 3 of you. And then the rest. And so I will make a breakout room here, 2 breakout rooms. All right, and let me do that. Add room. Okay.
Good question, Bill.
Yeah, sure,
Since
absolutely.
since those of us who are having to leave early are going to be leaving before you come back,
Right.
how do you want us to share with you what we talked about if you do?
So I do, but you can come next week, and we can just take it on there, and then I will put my email.
Oh, okay.
In the chat, and you can kind of contact me. This is sort of my thing, and so I will meet you anywhere, do anything that I can do to make this happen. So if you need to have a little Zoom, let's talk about this, that's fine. You just want to shoot me an email, that's great too. Almost. Okay, so let me assign. So let's see, in room 1, let's see, let's recreate. All right, so room 1 and
Sorry, Bill, is someone being a facilitator in each of these rooms?
yes,
Is it you
absolutely.
and Graham or someone else?
Yeah,
or-
right.
Yeah, okay.
Well, actually, yeah, we have quite a few people. I really love
Okay.
that. Okay. I don't know. It just says room 1. All right. Okay. There it is. A sign. Okay. So let's see. Sita has to leave. Diane has to leave. And Maria, you have to leave too, right? Okay.
Yes.
Great. All right. And
Bill, I
Graham-
don't have to leave.
Huh?
I
You
don't
don't?
have to leave.
Great. Okay. And Graham, would you facilitate the room with people who have to leave early? Would that be okay?
Yes, that's my pleasure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll do that. And let's see. And then I think if I do that, then the rest of us will just stay here. Okay. So Sita, Diane, Graham, and Maria. No, Maria. Oh, no, wrong. Okay. Maria. Okay, great. Okay. And open all rooms. Okay. All right. And all right. And good. Okay, good. It worked. Okay. Oh, Maria, yeah, I think. There we go. All right, now it worked. Okay, it's technical stuff that really. Okay, so the topic is empathy circles in schools, or where, of course, it's always or whatever is working you at the moment. Who would like to start speaking? I think everybody here has had at least one. Okay. This is what I talked about.
I'll start speaking.
Oh,
just to
thank
get
you
us
so
moving.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Are you going to be the listener, Bill?
You can
Yes.
pick anyone for the listener,
Okay.
but I'll be happy to.
And everyone here is familiar with empathy circles already?
Aaron just had his first
Aaron
one.
just had his
this
first.
morning.
Okay, great,
Yeah,
great.
Right.
So what's our time limit for speaking?
We'll go 5 minutes.
Okay, you've got time, okay.
Yeah,
great.
I got it all.
So yeah, as I mentioned in my introduction, I'm really just here
Are you
as
talking, who are you talking to?
to you.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just here as a parent, as well as, as a parent, you start to get very interested in education.
Mhm.
and I had my son later in life, in my 40s. So
Mhm.
it was something I didn't really pay attention to before. And I'll pause there.
Sure. So you're talking about your interest in this circle, and as a parent, you're very interested in this, and you had your son or daughter later in life, and now you're kind of seeing them in the school situation, and it's very important to you to see what sort of education and what sort of environment they'll grow up in.
Absolutely. And, I don't know that at this point we can have this be taught in schools, but we can try. Aaron's story gives me hope.
Mhm.
But it's also about creating models for parents to maybe do some of this for their own kids at home.
Mm. So you're seeing this as you're not quite sure exactly whether this particular model would be able to be adapted in school, though Aaron's experience gives you a bit of hope. But you also think there'd be excellent tool for parents to use with their children.
Yeah, I think as a parent, I'm seeing that there is a lot of responsibility that has to be on the parents, because even if we try to implement some things in schools, that takes years.
Mhm.
And if we really want to impact our kids now, some of us as parents have to take control and figure out if we can build little micro communities that care about this for with our kids, friends, parents.
Mm-hmm. So again, thinking about the bureaucratic intransience of schools, you don't know exactly how quickly that would be adapted. But if you are a parent and you want to impact your child now, it would be good to build, sort of communities among parents and families to promote this sort of practice and listening.
Yeah. And I think it's important because especially my son is 7 and we're dealing with some developmental changes right now.
Mhm.
And that has to do with empathy comes back. It kind of goes away for a little bit at this age and then it comes back, but helping model problem solving, listening, and being able to manage your emotions, and empathy circles are one great tool to, I think, model for these kids and get them used to.
Yeah. So your son is 7, and at this point they're going through certain cognitive and developmental changes. And this is the time to develop, healthy and good habits, and the ability to connect and also make social connections, which are so important throughout their lives.
Exactly. And we as parents are actually working with a parent coach who is a former teacher and also a child work in child psychology. And the things we're learning from her more and more, I'm just so sad kids don't learn in school. What a society we would have if these kids could learn these problem solving and connection and empathy skills in school. It would just be amazing.
So in your experience, you're working with a former teacher and psychologist, and you're very impressed by the skills that you're learning and that they're talking about. And you can see that if this were then, spread out to schools, it would be a profound change in our society.
Yes. And also just the appreciation of how much time your kids spend at school. So there's that balance of we can do so much as parents, but then they're at school for 6 to 8 hours. And so it would be great to get more of this and have more conversations like this into schools and in the hands of teachers. And right now we might just have to deal with the teachers that are willing to pioneer right now, the teachers like Aaron. But we have to start somewhere. So helping them lead the way to making this hopefully more mainstream.
Yeah. So seeing that seeing what the state of our society is right now with divisiveness and things like that, these skills are even more important. And then also talking about implementing them in schools, which would then really make these skills very effective and widespread. You will have to deal with pioneering teachers. Teachers are willing to kind of like step out, and we need to support them in order to start the ball rolling.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right, Aaron, looks like the pressure's on you. Everything depends upon you.
Do you? Yeah, exactly. So Bill, do you want me to be a listener now for someone else? Yes.
Oh, well,
Or how does that work?
eventually, yeah. It
Okay.
goes to me.
Goes to you. Got it.
Yeah, and then the active listener becomes the speaker.
You.
And
I'm
then
still learning. So
oh,
yeah.
that's fine. No, that's great. That's great. Okay. So Aaron, would you listen to me?
I'd love to.
Okay, great. So first of all, I'm kind of reacting both intellectually and emotionally to what Maria said, because because I agree. It's like it's nice to hear someone who would say, "Oh, you see that," whereas when I go out walking in the street, or if I talk to things or I watch TV, I don't see it, and so I get a distorted view of what reality is. So I'll stop there.
So you're responding intellectually and emotionally to this experience of hearing something which coincides with something which is so meaningful to you that sometimes seems quite sparse and distant in your everyday life, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. And during the pandemic, I've watched a lot of TV. I've been very concerned about the state of our society. And boy, it's depressing. And I realized that, you know, it's like you think you're going to go outside and somebody's going to hit you over the head with something. And I was just thinking in a vision of a culture of empathy. What if you went outside and you felt vulnerable and you felt comfortable? Just turn, you know, you're on a train or something like that, and you said, you know, I'm having a hard time. Just to the person next to you, and say, would you listen to me for 5 minutes? And the person who has been trained, oh, sure. I'll listen to you for 5 minutes. I'll stop there.
So watching a lot of TV
Yeah.
over the pandemic, there has been a, you said that it's almost been depressing. It's been depressing hearing all
Yeah.
the information and of the vision of an empathic community. What if one day that we could be on a train with strangers and that the feeling vulnerable with strangers, but still being able to have an intimate empathy conversation.
Right. You know, growing up as I did in New York City, you were always, I mean, you know, the slow didn't make it. You know, it was sort of what was it? You know, survival of the fittest. And you always, you know, you had to check and things like that. But what if, you know, that's not the way to build a society. I'll stop there.
So New York City, you said it's survival of the fittest, and
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand actually when you said you have to check.
Oh, it's just that in New York, in growing up in New York, you have to check the traffic. You have to, you know, check the people around you, see what the culture is. You know, you're constantly on.
Okay, so in New York, there's you're constantly having to check as to whether you're safe on the traffic, or there's a lot of bombardment with information and dangers maybe, and
Right.
and yeah, I think I remember you mentioning before that this isn't a way to build a society.
Right. Yeah, and I apologize because I'm like all mixed up here. I'm just like, there's so many things that I want to say, but they wouldn't be coherent. I'll stop there.
So you apologize to me for your thoughts perhaps seeming mixed up because there's so much that you want to say, and they might not come out in a coherent sense.
Right. And you know, and that, I guess what I want to get back to is the profound learning. When we react to violence or quote unquote hate, I had a profound learning, and it was very difficult. This student was very in crisis, and they actually had laid down in the middle of the road, and you can't do that. So we had to, you know, escort the, you know, put hands on to get them off the road. And that child was, you know, scratching, and you know how it is when they're just trying to take you out, and it's not even you. It's just that they feel so hopeless and everything. And I was sitting there, and they were like, you know, yelling at me, and, you know, you're sweating, and it's really one of the most difficult feelings that you can have. And they finally said, well, I'm going to kill you. You know, they're threatening to kill me. And then, you know, we just said, oh, not going to let anybody get hurt here. We're just going to, you know, stay the course. And they said, well, I'm going to kill myself. And then I said, well, I'd be sad. I'd be sad. And that changed the dynamic, because rather than against me, we were now trying to save them. And all of a sudden, you know, they went down, you know, they calmed down. I'll stop there, and that's the end of my time.
So you had a very difficult but profound learning experience when one student or young person you were working with was in a crisis and laid down in the road. And you had to put hands on to move them off the road, and they were scratching and there was a lot of agitation within their body, and eventually they threatened to kill you. And then once you said that we aren't going to allow anyone to be hurt here, they said that, well, I'm going to kill myself. And then you expressed that that would make you sad, and it changed the dynamic where you were teammates now with the goal of healing as a unit, and your direction of focus pointed the same way, and you had an aligned goal, and it changed everything.
Thank you, Aaron. I feel fully heard. That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
So you're a speaker and you can talk to whoever.
Anne, will you listen to me, please?
Love to, Aaron.
So just before coming onto this meeting, I was actually in the process of writing quite a difficult email. I've come up with an idea where I would like to lay a half hour, well, it's over 45 minutes every day in the lunchtime of our school. And there'll be 3 15-minute slots within this 45 minutes. First slot, men. Student men, staff men. Second slot, all pupils, boys and girls, or just anyone in the school. And the third one, just teachers, men or women. I'll stop there, and I don't mind if you don't reflect the details.
So you had to, just before coming on the call, you were writing a difficult email, and you have this idea for 45 minutes daily, and having this during the school lunchtime, and splitting it up into 3 slots. And you'd have the first slot would be men, children, teachers, any males, and the second call would be for anybody in the school, teachers, children, staff, all staff, and the third would be exclusively for teachers.
Yes, and what I'm from my experience, silence is such a healer for some, and it's seriously confrontational for others. And what I would love to do is create a space where people can start to fall in love with their relationship with silence. And so it's only a 15-minute slot, because 5 minutes would be for changeover, but it's 10 minutes, and I've called it 10 for me. And it's basically 10 minutes. The first 5 minutes, I'll guide a secular, mindful relaxation through breathing and mindfulness techniques. And the next 5 minutes will be quiet. And the goal is to create a culture in the middle of the day where people just reset and then go into their afternoon, not taking their morning with them. I'll pause there.
So, you're looking at this idea of having silence and introducing silence, but in your experience, some people can see this being immensely healing, but others can experience silence as being quite confrontational. And you're thinking of creating a space in this. So there's 10 minutes where you would lead a practice of mindfulness, and then there would be a period of 5 minutes of quiet. And you describing this as 10, this is like 10 for me. So, the idea about for this that you're hoping is that it would separate what had happened previously in the day, what's been going on for each person, so that they do a reset, have the quiet, ready for the next part of the day.
Yes, And the difficult part about the email is while I was writing it, I came up with the idea for one slot being for just men, because I was going to write a thing just being like, because I know that so many men in my community are just going to go, they're going to get a third of the way down the email and just click next. And I'm going to call them out. I'm going to be like, all right, well, your mental health, I'm going to do it in a diplomatic, skillful way. I'm going to say it in the emotional way now so I can get it out. Your mental health might be fine, but what about all the men that don't have it? So you call yourself strong, well, be strong for others. Be a leader, be a pioneer. The stats are, you cannot argue with the stats. 3/4 of all suicides in the UK are men. Over 4,000 people killed themselves in 2019. And the trajectory is in this direction. So and I just want to ask the question, what are you doing to help this? And could simply showing up, even if you don't think it will benefit you, break down these barriers and show young men that it's okay and that you're still a strong man if you come and be quiet for 10 minutes. Thank you.
So the difficult part was in writing this email, you knew as you wrote it, and you had this idea while you were writing it of having a group specifically for men. And I sensed that was almost to entice them in, to grab their attention so they even read the email. And then I heard you touch on your own passion for this issue, which you clearly acknowledged, and you said that you were doing it now. You wouldn't necessarily do it that way with others, but you wanting to get those men there who might think, I'm strong, I'm okay, but to bring them to address that it's okay and it's good to do this to help others and to address the mental health of men, given that 75% of suicides and I think you said in the UK are of men, and the figures for suicides or male suicides are rapidly increasing.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thanks, Aaron. I love that passion. That's what we need. And there's no, so it's my turn and I will choose Maria. Would you listen to me, please?
I would love to.
So yes, I started already. So yeah, I love that passion. And I think I've been learning in this last year or so that showing up with who we are, you know, including that reference and our passion is what helps connect and inspires others or connects us and attracts others to what it is we're passionate about. So it's like a real positive thing to use, or to use sort of sounds manipulative, but to show up with your emotion and your passion.
So I hear you saying you love the passion that Aaron just shared, and as you learn more about this work, you're convinced that just showing up and bringing that passion helps us progress, helps us make things better, and that people bringing that passion to the table is actually something that helps move things along and make things better. You didn't want to use the word use because you thought it sounded manipulative, but if we can leverage that passion to move forward, that's what really helps us progress.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking about the effects of a toxic system that we're in, is that we're separated and divided from one another, and we don't have these connections with each other adequately. They've been thoroughly damaged, almost destroyed for lots of people, most of us, and we need to kind of nurture and grow the mycelium of connection between us, because collectively we're so much more powerful than we are as one. As one, we're disempowered. So I'll pause there. Hi, Maria.
Hi,
Maria.
I'm Maria, not Maria.
Yeah, but Maria's just arriving.
Right.
She's gone again.
Oh, okay. So I hear you saying that we're in such a toxic society right now. There's so many divisions, so much dividing us, and you really want us all to be reconnecting. You use the term mycelium of connection because we're actually stronger together than we are apart.
Yeah. And I was actually, for a period of time, I was with my partner, we were mushroom farmers. And literally, like the compost, you prepare your compost and then you put your spores in, and it literally spreads through the soil before anything shows. So it's really connects. So we need to connect all that beautiful growing and connecting underground, and then pops all sorts of magic.
So I hear you saying that
mushrooms are amazing. They just pop up overnight and they're beautiful and tiny and perfect. And it's what happens in the soil that's important.
All right. So yes, what I hear you, what I hear you saying is that you, for a while, were a mushroom farmer with your partner, and even just the way that mushrooms grow, they create the spores actually connect, and from that, beautiful things flourish. And it's this wonderful, for you, it's this wonderful analogy of nature, of what happens, the power of working together, and what can flourish when you're all connected and you all work together.
And this empathy is all about connecting us to one another, and so that we can turn around and there's someone on the bus or the train that we can just say, having a tough day, can you listen to me for a minute? And that's okay, as Bill said earlier. So this is what we want for the children, so that they're allies and resources to one another. So we need to connect, and the way to connect is to show up with the whole of ourselves, including our emotions and our passions.
So I hear you saying that empathy is the way that we can connect with each other, and so we can eventually have that world that Bill has envisioned, of being able to turn around to a stranger on a train and share how we're feeling. And this is what we need to help our children with in developing these skills of connection, because then they can have better relationships with each other.
And I believe, this is our natural way to be with one another, and it's been stopped, just the way we've been blocked. That was my time, blocked from nature in the way we live our lives. We're blocked from each other in the way we live our lives. And thank you very much.
I'll just close out your reflection. So you're saying this is kind of the natural way that we need to be, is connected, and we've been blocked by external forces from being this way, from interacting with each other in this way.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay, it's your turn to be speaker, Marie. Pick a listener.
Oh, are we just round robining? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
great.
You don't have to, and you don't have to talk to the same people. Or
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
I will pick Aaron. Will you be my listener?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I'm just so full of hope right now from the, hour we've been together, half hour, I was a little late. Just that more and more people are having these conversations. And I really feel like this is how change happens. It bubbles up from little sparks. And so it's just giving me, I've felt very hopeless like Bill this past year, especially raising a child with everything going on. And I'm just feeling, that's what's coming up for me right now, is I'm feeling really hopeful to just even be part of this conversation. And I'll pause there.
So over the last hour, but maybe not an hour, we're a little late. A lot of hope has come up from this conversation, and you feel like it's bubbling up from all the small sparks. And you've also felt some hopelessness over the last year, like Bill, especially raising a young child in the pandemic.
Yes. And doing these trainings and having these conversations to even talk about these issues emboldens me to be more vocal about it outside of these talks. So I'm starting to bring more of this to other people. And like I shared this series with other people, like I'm not feeling so insecure about, you know, oh, will someone be receptive to this, or will they think it's weird, or I'm just kind of going for it. And I'll pause there.
So these conversations are helping you be more bold in your everyday life when you're not in these designated empathy circles. And now, rather than having as much inhibition, you feel confident enough to go for it.
Smack people in the face. And I think, you know, again, I think the more of us that speak out about the need for this for children in their education and in their modeling, is, even if we don't see the fruition of it, even if in our lifetime we don't see like a whole school curriculum, like that one school I mentioned, which is, you know, a drop in the ocean, I still feel like we're advancing it by just having conversations and making ourselves aware.
So these conversations that are starting to happen about integrating empathy into schools is so important, is what I heard or felt from you. And that even if we don't see in our lifetimes this full fruition and the full integration of the work which is happening right here into the education system, we don't see a full curriculum like the drop in the ocean that you mentioned of the school, you know, it's still so worthwhile. And I want to say that you referred to this is enough just to know that we're in the right direction.
Yeah, I think many, for myself, I'm very action oriented. And so I feel like, you know, why can't we just put a plan in place for next school year, you know, to do these things? But I know, and unfortunately, the reality of the system gets in my way. But I think the more, it's like you create a groundswell, the more parents and teachers and people that start to say, this is important, it will start to be important. And we're already seeing that shift in our society from the pandemic. The fact that even in business, this conversation is happening about empathy for your employees and your customers is important. Those conversations weren't happening 20 years ago. And so same thing for education. The more we can start to have these conversations, the more it will start to be important and start to be a priority. I'll pause there.
The conversations which are happening are acting almost like a groundswell, which is creating movement in different parts of society, business and colleagues, and the power of that in the business place is starting to be known. And that's all I caught.
That was mostly it. I mean, it's just that it's happening in other sectors where it's important. So we can be part of starting that groundswell and continuing the groundswell that's already started for education.
Okay, so it's already happening in these different sectors, and we can be a part of the groundswell which is going to create the momentum for it to pop up in these different regions of our society.
Yes, thank you. I feel heard.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay. You're a speaker, Aaron, and pick a listener, and
Bill, would you listen to me?
happily.
So yeah, I'm going back to the email. I'm yet to send this email. And often this happens when I'm emotional about something. It's actually a really good practice for me to write it, walk away, write it again, maybe show my mum. She sees through a lot of my reactivity, actually. But actually conversations like this are making me more bold, and before maybe where I'd be super diplomatic and la-di-da about it, I think I'm actually becoming a bit more confident to be like, come on.
Okay, so you're going and focusing about this email that you want to present to your peers, and through this practice here, generally what you do is you write it, you walk away, you see, and you also, your mother is a good sounding board for you. But now that you're kind of seeing that, wait a minute, this is not so far-fetched, this is important. And so you're feeling a bit more energetic and feel that the validity of what you're saying is deeper.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm really scared. I'm really afraid that it's less my reputation, which I would have cared about in the past. I think it's actually my attachment to the outcome rather than loving the work and feeling into the work and acting with faith. I think that's probably the habit which is popping up for me. But I've made a lot of progress in my own personal practice to be able to hold fear and function with it. However, for a long time now, food has like been my like shadow side. When I'm scared, I turn to food, and in the past in much more unhealthy ways than I do now, but it's still present and sensitive for me.
So you're kind of analyzing or examining your own feelings, and there's some fear about doing this, and there's a possibility of, you know, being rejected in your reputation, especially your professional reputation. But then you're also feeling into, rather than worrying about that, you know, advocating something that you feel is deeply correct. And you're also kind of looking over how you've dealt with these issues of fear in the past. You talked about food and things like that that have been unhealthy or maybe a little bit compulsive, when you're feeling fear as a sort of, like they say, comfort food or things like that. And so you're kind of, I just sense that you're kind of like examining these feelings and trying to sort them out, but you haven't quite, you know, you're trying to find that balance.
Yeah, exactly. And the concept of discipline is super complicated to actually put into practice, and how intertwined it can be with self whipping. And at the moment, I'm trying to come at it from a different angle from what I've been taught, which is like, I don't want to eat this now because I love myself, not because I love my body, and I love the people that I want to be energized for, to be able to serve, rather than I'm not going to eat this because otherwise you're going to be fat and no one's going to find you attractive.
Right. So you're kind of self-reflecting about the difference between discipline and self-flagellation. And you want to, incorporate discipline because you love yourself and you're actually doing something good for yourself, rather than worrying about whether people are going to find you attractive or not, or what other internal things. This is good for you, and the value, the value is intrinsic.
Thank you. I feel fully listened to.
Okay, great. All right, Anne.
Yeah, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, I had an experience in an empathy circle. I kind of want to reflect what I think Maria said and other people said, and actually I want to talk about mycelium too. There's lots of things.
Ceiling.
No, mycelium. Sorry, mushroom.
Mycelium. Gotcha.
Yeah. No, I'm all over the place here because I'm excited, and I really appreciate, so first of all, I guess I want to express my gratitude and appreciation that there are other people who struggle with this as I do, and I'll stop there.
So you want to talk about an experience in empathy circles, and then you also want to talk about the mycelium. And generally, you're acknowledging that you're feeling really quite excited and feeling a bit all over the place. And another element that you're noticing is that you're not the only one who struggles with these things. So, yeah, sounds like you're feeling full.
Right. So the first thing in an empathy circle, we had a person who was a practicing psychiatrist from Romania, and a 14-year-old high school student in an empathy circle. And they both got something out of it. And something like, like figuratively, I don't want to self-flagellate, but I slap myself sort of figuratively in the side of the face, say, pay attention to that. This is important. I'll stop there.
So in this empathy circle, there was a psychiatrist, a practicing psychiatrist from parts of Europe, and a 14-year-old in the empathy circle, and they both got a lot out of it. And there's part of you that was kind of wanting to self-flagellate about this somehow.
No, I don't want to self-flagellate, but in my experience, sort of like, again, my culture in New York, you kind of give yourself what we call a dope slap, just saying, hey, pay attention. This is important.
Right.
So humorously, not.
Okay, so it isn't self-flagellate. It's actually, and you relate it to a culture in New York. It's actually give yourself a slap to help yourself pay attention to what's just happened.
Yeah. So
to notice and appreciate it.
Sure. So what is happening in the empathy circle that where a 14-year-old high school student and a practicing, clinician get something out? I mean, their vocabulary, their experience, one's a woman, one's a boy, but what's happening there? I'll stop there.
So you're seeing like the diversity of these two people and where they're coming from, who they are, and they're really getting something out of it, and there's excitement in you about this and acknowledgement of it.
Right, because what what I got at this point is that there's this underlying shared experience, that there's something that's happening here that both of these people can get value from. Now let's go to the mycelium. The mycelium is actually the largest organism in the world. I think is some sort of mycelium filaments in Minnesota, which are like 100 square miles or something. But what they found out in the is that the mycelium and those tendrils under the soil, as you said, actually distribute nutrients to the trees. And if a tree is injured, they get more nutrients. If a tree, doesn't give the mycelium, there's a price to pay for that. In other words, this is communication, interspecies communication that goes on all right, this is science, here, that keeps the whole idea of the forest, going on, that somehow the mycelium is aware of the trees are aware of the mycelium, and also through the mycelium, the trees are communicating with each other. So again, this talks about this interconnectivity. I'll stop there, and then my time's up.
So this an exciting, and the idea of the mycelium that you picked on, and the research that's done, and what's been found out, like it's possibly the mycelium is the largest organism in the world. It covers more than, I think you said something like a square mile, maybe.
Yeah, more than that, hundreds, yeah.
Hundreds, huge area. And there's science and research on this, and that there's this interspecies communication, and the mycelium brings the nourishment to the trees, and if there's something going on with a tree, actually that tree will be nourished more by the mycelium. So the trees communicate with one another, and like the whole forest. So this is the whole system is taken care of by this mycelium.
Right. And just to and that it seems the trees, the mycelium, are aware of the forest, the whole as an entity. And then I'm done. Thanks.
Yeah. So not only the trees and the mycelium, they're aware of the whole forest as an entity. So they all have this bigger picture sense.
Thank you, Anne. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Bill. So, Alan, would you listen to me, please?
Sure, Anne.
And I feel, and what we're doing here, even this evening, connecting across the world, I'm not quite sure where everyone is, but certainly we're across the Atlantic. And I've been privileged for the last year or so to be working with people, again, from across the world, different countries. And it does give this realization and understanding that Bill is talking about, that we are like the mycelium. We have all this commonality, this shared, we're human, we share our humanness, and that's vast. And that we are actually all part of nature, and different people have different perspectives on that and understandings. But it's so rich to I feel, I'm kind of nourished, but just resourced by this knowledge that I've been gaining.
So you spoke to and acknowledged the fact that we're here now speaking to people around the world across the Atlantic, and that this is giving you a visceral sense of this interconnectedness in which we hold as human beings, which is likened to the mycelium metaphor in which we've been using in this group. And that this knowledge that we are all interconnected nourishes you and nurtures you.
Yeah, and it inspires me. Yeah, it's exciting. And this understanding, like even as we've been talking this evening, I'm thinking about like the networks or the people that I have some connection with, and thinking there's Karen, who's an educational psychologist in London, and Katie, who's a special education needs teacher, and others, and then thinking of parents and just where there's receptivity or the possibility of connecting to, and like as the mycelium, taking some of our resource and our energy there to support, and so we can bubble up all over.
So this knowledge is I look forward to reflecting that bit back. Sorry, I shouldn't have commented. So you're inspired by this knowledge and you've started to think about the networks in which you hold. Karen, who's a clinical psychologist, and Katie, who works with learning support or special education. And you're looking at this metaphor again of being able to distribute nutrients throughout the network. And yes.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just want to acknowledge that Graham has joined us, and so just part of the circle. You know, and then it's almost 11:30. So here, I know it's being geocentric here. And so why don't we give, you know, Aaron, and then, you know, and then Graham, would you like a turn to speak?
No, thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
If I contribute, it's in a way as a summary of what we did in our breakout room.
Great. Okay. So why don't we say, Aaron, why don't you pick a speaker, anyone, and then we'll do a short debrief.
Yes, that sounds good.
Pick a listener. Yeah.
Maria, will you listen to me, please?
I'd love to.
I'm finding that I'm not sure what other people's experiences are of empathy circles, but I'm finding that this is really flexing my mindfulness muscles, because I'm finding actually if I relax my shoulders and my breath and I just listen to the flow of others' words, that when it comes to reflecting, it's all there. But if I'm worrying about as to whether I missed that sentence, or so like the thoughts, that they can be a barrier to this sort of inherent ability to reflect. I'll pause there.
So what I heard you say is that you're realizing how much you're working on your mindfulness during these empathy circles, and that you're realizing that with the more that you try to concentrate on making sure you don't miss any words, it's harder versus if you just relax and really be present in listening to what the other person is saying.
Yeah, and I'm finding this circle actually particularly, I feel more confident because it's my second one. And so I'm like, I think that's allowing me to sort of tune in and actually speak back and reflect the words, but then also the spirit in which they were said, which is quite fun. But at the same time, I'm quite new and I don't want to project myself. So I can see there's a lot of, this is actually a really rich skill, like really like a deep, like, yeah, empathic listening, I've realized, is like one of these great journeys, like Tai Chi or, yeah, something like that. Yeah, finished. Well,
so given that this is your second empathy circle, you're starting to feel more comfortable with this idea of being present and being able to reflect, and you're acknowledging and realizing that empathic listening is a deep skill, just like Tai Chi or some other skill that you might have to practice and develop over time.
Yeah. And I think for me, they're the best skills, because completion actually is enticing, but never that good when it when it turns up, or sort of yeah, so like a journey that's just so endless that it forces you to settle into being a constant beginner, is so good for me, because I have a fantastic and profound capacity to be self-centered. So activities like this, which just disable my self-centered mind for the part of me which is wise, is such a relief.
So what I hear you saying is that you're learning that, you know, sometimes it's not just about the destination, the completion, but really settling into the journey and being a constant learner is powerful, and it's useful. And you realize about yourself, you're recognizing that you have a tendency to self-centeredness, and this journey is kind of forcing you to let go of that self-centeredness a little bit so that you can empathically listen to another person and be able to reflect back.
Yes. And also having so many examples. You know, I listen to over Zoom, even just looking at the faces here, I haven't had an experience before where just looking at people's, I'm a part of a meditation group on Zoom. So like my spiritual practice for the last year has been on Zoom, basically. And yeah, this is another huge resource to have role models that where there's no hierarchy, and I feel like one of the crew, and yeah, it's just so fantastic to have amazing examples of this path and what it creates as a person. What sort of personality does it form when you practice stuff like this? It's inspiring. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is you're inspired by the models that you're seeing in this practice, and that you have actually had a meditation practice over Zoom for quite some time, but also just the power in seeing the faces and being able to see the models is actually really helping you with the practice, and it's very inspiring.
Yes.
Do you feel fully heard, Aaron?
I do, yes.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if my time was up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Excuse
Yeah, I
me.
do feel fully heard. Thank
Maria,
you.
would you like another? I want to give you a chance. Would you like another turn to speak?
I think I'm okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you, though.
Sure. Okay. Just want to check in.
That's
Okay.
like a news flash that Maria's done speaking. So
Good.
my husband's probably going to go, "What?"
Yeah, I know. No, great. All right. So Graham, do you want to kind of let us know what happened in the other group?
Yes, I do. And I've made a few notes,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to read these from my paper, but I just want to glance to it every now and again. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that the other members of the group are not offended by or put out by any of my summaries. I get the impression that everybody had a chance to talk about the context from where they're coming. And Sita is in a situation where she's mulling over how to implement empathy circles. She doesn't really have a context. She's got some ideas. So she's still exploring pathways and contexts. And Maria, she is in Hawaii, and something that resonated in her was what I was talking about the process of addictions and how they develop and where they develop from. And I was using a very simplistic model, but she kind of resonated with that as a potential, because she's detecting deviant behavior amongst some of the adolescents in her domain or field of view, whatever. And her son is a 16-year-old. So I think she's pricked her ears up to that. And then there's Diane, Zombie or Zomba, and she comes from Houston, Texas. And they've got one of the largest school systems, she thinks, in the world. It's huge. And so she's absolutely daunted by the task of trying to infiltrate or influence that organization. Essentially her takeaway, and we had the time to extract our takeaways. Her takeaway was that she doesn't have to change the world. And which, as we can judge, may be a huge relief to her. But the other one is that she needs to absorb these processes to the point where she becomes a role model. And from that platform, she can then engage in whatever she wishes. And for me, I talked about the world of addictions, where I come from and I have things to do with. So I just kind of described the addiction model to the group as my context, if you like, and this addiction facility. And that they would be very much against any sort of source of influence coming from me, and from me in particular. And I'm not on the same wavelength as them. They're all very authoritarian, and they act like parents whose children become addicts. So it's just a crazy dysfunctional network. But anyway, the idea for me is, and this came from Diane. She says, Graham, unless you build it, you will never influence that world. So I have to get on and build my own empathy circles in order to have some kind of influence. And that summarizes our little breakout room.
Great. Thanks so much, Graham. So what I'll do is I'll ask each of you just, a short, no time limit, but just basically takeaways, how you're feeling, kind of takeaways, and then we'll wrap it up. So Maria, do you mind?
Thank you. So we talked a lot about connection and interconnectedness in our group. We started initially talking about the education conundrum around bringing empathy and mindfulness. We did talk about the benefits of that for children, some of us coming from an educator lens, myself coming from a parent lens, and we all see the power of that kind of modeling and education. And I think we landed in a similar place where just having us really start the conversations and embolden ourselves to be comfortable with the conversations is a pathway to change. That similar to maybe what the other group felt like, it's not going to change overnight, but in our own sharings, we all kind of mentioned ways that we're seeing progress, whether it's just progress in ourselves or like feeling emboldened that we can actually spark some change, even if it's not structural change at this point, that we can start planting those seeds and building those connections. That the mycelium analogy kept coming up over and over again.
Thank you, Maria. Aaron.
So I was flabbergasted by the first 5 minutes where I was given about 6 different resources which could help me in my journey with my work. I was like, wow. Yeah, just really Yeah, it's about confidence. I think this is super scary work, and like we established in the empathy circle this morning, that it is a rebellion to live the way that is your authentic self, and it takes a lot of bravery and courage. And I'll share a quote which I shared this morning, which I don't know, I'm afraid, where it came from. It was on a training I did yesterday, but one's capacity or willingness to be vulnerable is the most accurate gauge of their courage. And I feel really at my edge at the moment. And not only do I think that these groups are going to facilitate the work I do directly, but at the same time, they're going to support me emotionally in being able to actually implement it. So, wow, and thank you, all of you, for today.
Thank you. Anne?
Yeah, this has been really interesting. It's been really enjoyed being part of this, and I'm thinking about the bits I didn't even get to begin to talk about, like how I can somehow have some impact on bringing this into children through schools or Home Start or via parents or supporting teachers. So it's brought it more to my mind, and I'm grateful for that, Bill, and it feels really timely, because I was talking over the weekend to two teachers, and it feels like listening to them, I think there's an opportunity at this moment, because of the pandemic, that things are different, and it's glaringly obvious to people within the system that things are different and there are needs. So I think there is a golden opportunity at the moment.
Thanks so much, Anne. So I just wanted to point out throughout human history, when there's been a revolution or change, it usually involves basically having to, kill people and, or vote them out, or to do something against someone, and then we'll have that wonderful thing. And what humans, I feel, have failed to realize is that that act of, violence and conflict then, affects them. So then we get what the WHO famously said, here comes the new boss, same as the old boss. And so while you're right, we don't have to feel that we have to change the whole world as far as volume in the moment, I want people to just maybe consider what happened here. We've just created a culture of empathy, minute as it is, right here, and we cut out the middleman. We have done a revolutionary act. We've listened to each other, and without judgment and support, and are acknowledging community. And so I hope that can grow. So I just want to end by saying that I appreciate you so much from being here. In my struggles, I feel very lonely, and when you all come here, it really, really helps me. We'll be meeting for 4 initial sessions. I do have another, if there's a specific thing, I have documentation, I have all sorts of ways. So I put I saw that I didn't put Yahoo, spell that correctly. I put my email out there, but you can contact me through Culture of Empathy, through Edwin, any way that you want. If you have a specific situation, hey, Bill, this is what's happening. Do you have anything that would, for instance, scientifically back up what I'm trying to say? Or, how can I amend the empathy circle to fit this particular situation? Please, I will go anywhere on Zoom right now, but I will do, I'm very committed to supporting you and creating this. So Yeah.
I would
go
ask,
ahead.
I have a quick question. Do you
Sure.
have any sort of like first attempt to introduce this into a school? Do you have any sort of like email or letter that's like a good first step to, like, for example, for me as a parent, to try to do something at my son's school? Do you have anything like that crafted where it's like, here's this concept, here's why it's
Right.
important, this is what it could look like, or even like bones of that?
Yes, I had. Well, bones would be the
Okay.
the operative word. I don't have something that, other than the email that I sent out.
Okay.
I don't have anything crafted that's finished, but I would love to work with you on creating such a document. And I do have supporting, like I have here. This is the just downloaded from the California Department of Education. Why social emotional learning. And then I also have the goals, the educational goals, which align what we're
Yes.
doing here orally with literary analysis.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so by all means, contact me. We can
Okay.
get together. We could do it in the context of this group or without
Okay.
it. Yeah,
Great. Thank you.
sure. Any other questions or comments at the end? Yeah, Aaron.
Did you say there's 4 more sessions of this?
3
Or-
more, right?
Oh, 3 more, right. That's right.
And are they next every Thursday at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I had to ask. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I'm open to extending it, but I just wanted to make it, manageable at this particular time. We can see what next steps might go. Anne, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so my question is, is it like you need to come to the first as well as the second, third and fourth, or is it open for anyone else to come and join at any point?
This is and anybody can come at any point. This is
Okay.
like a sort of an open cafe. I have created a course, a 4-session course, talking about and going into depth about this. And I did, and it was interesting. But what I found is that I got a bit into the weeds, and so that a lot of people did, it was a bit, well, oh, I'm not there yet. And so what I'm trying to do with these cafes is develop, people who are interested in this, have them develop their own ideas. And then I have a framework which will hopefully, help you and support you on your way. Graham.
These are completely undeveloped ideas, but in some respects, they also influenced my facilitation in the group, because in my little breakout room, I suggested that we focus on the context in which we are envisaging working. And then my thoughts would be that we'd go on to be talking about what our kind of feelings and needs are in connection with this process. In other words, what our priorities are. And then kind of more talking about the action-orientated stuff. So just in my mind, I was trying to conceiving a way of breaking it up where we talk about the context. Then as the next step is what the priorities are, what motivates us, how much energy we have, how many resources we have, and then maybe talking about the goals and the action-orientated side of it.
Right. Yeah, and when I developed that short course, those ideas, I may not hit all the marks that you mentioned, but I did create it. So what I felt that probably a more functional model is to see where everybody is, and then give you the information that applies to your situation rather than lay everything on you, which, as Maria said, people, shut up, Bill. I would just tell a quick story. When I was interviewing for a special education teacher, I had to get this kid to do his math. And when I get nervous, I talk a lot because I have to give you everything. You have to know this and that. Oh, you didn't know that. Well, and people are saying, whoa. So the kid turned to me, he said, Mr. Filler, I'll do the math. Just shut up. So So that was a very good learning to me, in that you can easily overwhelm people and stuff like that. And
I think there's that balance of overwhelm versus you have to still provide a context of like, what is this? Why are we here? What are you going to get out of it? And like, we still, there's completely open-ended, which like everyone's meandering in the dark. And then there's authoritarian. And then there's something in the middle, which is like giving people the context and helping them understand like, okay, this is kind of the structure. But then we're free within the structure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I'm trying, and to be transparent, I'm trying to find that sweet spot at this point.
Bill, have you ever heard of formatting? Formatting?
No, I haven't, I guess. I mean, I know what FOR matting, I know generally, but probably not specifically what you're talking about.
You'll find it easily on YouTube, but it's basically a system used in adult education. Where I learned it to deliver a bit of a course here at the school, where you've got why learners, what learners, how learners, and what if. So the why learners, they're like, but why? And they lose their interest straight away. So you have to hit them first. And it's a system. And I've sort of trained myself to now go, this is why you're here. This is what I'm telling you. This is how you're going to implement it. And here's some, do you want to ask me some questions? And it's called formatting. You'll be able to learn it in 12 minutes on a YouTube video. And it's changed the way I communicate with in situations where I'm trying to teach.
Thank you, Aaron. I'll check it out.
Cool.
I will check it out.
Okay. All right. And I'll just do as Edwin with not jazz hands. I'll do it at the end. Thank you. Okay. Have a great week. Hope to see you again. And thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bill,
Yeah.
can I ask you a quick question?
Oh yeah, sure.
Or if others do want to do the same first, they may. Did you invite everybody who's done the training, the facilitation training?
Edwin let me